This final episode in the history of Paducah Junior College opens with a period of transition, the period in which Paducah Junior College merges into the community college system of the University of Kentucky, which proved to be a troubled time, not only for this institution, but for institutions of higher education throughout the United States. In 1968, the nation experienced troubles on many campuses, and this one also felt the impact of student unrest. Dr. Clemens, you were at the time of the merger and the transition from Paducah Junior College to Paducah Community College, able to maintain Title III funding. How were we able to do this while other community colleges couldn't at that time?
John, at the time that we joined the community college system, the university had not applied for Title III funds. And at this time, the university community college system was accredited through the university, where Paducah Junior College, of course, was accredited as an independent individual institution. So it made us qualified and eligible for Title III funds, where the community college system at that time was not.
But the fact that we were able to continue our relationship with the assisting institution, that being Murray State University, to get Title III funding hinged in part upon our having a local control board. Is that true?
That's correct. The requirements were, one, that we have a control board, which of course we did qualify, and the other, of course, that we were accredited individually.
And speaking of accreditation, the university community college systems being so new had not at that time gone through a self-study process. What did the transition from Paducah Junior College to Paducah Community College do to the accreditation procedure?
Well, it required us to go through a reaffirmation process because we did have change in control in terms of the administration of the college. That was the most critical area, and of course the other area would be finance. Financing was being done through the University of Kentucky via the state.
And so we really just did a partial self-study while the others were in the process of going through the full study for accreditation.
Well, you recall that you were director of the self-study at that time, John, and we did have to respond to all the standards, all the requirements the other community colleges had to, but since we had just gone through it approximately 4 or 5 years previous to it, it was not that difficult. Normally the cycle would be 10 years.
Well, in this transition year after the contract of 1968, I believe the institution undertook an ambitious project that had been initiated under Paducah Junior College to build a new library building. Were there any changes in the original intent of the building as it progressed?
Yes. After the initial development of the building, well, that really required the building to be 2 levels library, opening up with the top level and later on moving down the lower one. And as you mentioned, our Title III, excuse me, our Title III funding provided special program monies. One was the Advancement Center, which we called developmental at that time, and the other was the Computer Center.
So under this Title III, then we got an opportunity to add something to assist students who lacked certain basic skills. This fitted right into the philosophy of a comprehensive community college, did it not, the developmental program?
Yes, it did, and when you're referring to that, I think it was critical for the students then presently enrolled at PJC, PCC, because under PJC there was a requirement of a 2-point average to graduate, but not to matriculate. And under the community college system, the students had to, of course, conform to the requirement of a 2-point to matriculate. So the developmental program assisted many of our students that had deficiencies in these areas.
And there was additional pressure, of course, due to the Vietnam War on students maintaining grades or else be subject to the draft. And so the developmental program assisted those who needed some additional help in well, rather than throwing a student out, you took him as he was and tried to develop him to where he could succeed. Is that correct?
Yes, we reflect on those years, and sometimes memories or events that happened in the past get crowded out by the current events, which is where it should be. But our students probably were, and this is true throughout the United States, most highly motivated during this period of time. You're referring to them keeping the 2-point average to matriculate. If they did not, they were drafted. And of course, by remaining in college and by being successful, academically successful, they were not drafted into the Vietnam War, which we know in retrospect, again, as an historian, reflecting back on this, we realize that it was the most popular war that we were ever into. And it was very difficult for administrators to make decisions on academic standings that might affect a person's life and have them go into the service.
Well, it's also required administrators such as yourself to try to establish new avenues of contact with the student just to keep up with what was offering perhaps as a threat to the institution itself.
Yes, I think probably that in our lifetime, and I think probably in several generations, there was more of an upheaval of our value system during this period of the late 60s and early 70s. And I established what I call a rap session, or a meeting weekly with 30 to 40 students, and providing sandwiches and Cokes. And it gave them a chance to express their concerns and their feelings, not only about Paducah Community College, but the world at large. And it was a ventilating process for them, I think very, very healthy.
Well, really, there was not a major event on our campus, but I think, as I remember, we came rather close in at least one instance. Did your rep session perhaps help establish a rapport that averted a major crisis?
Our enrollment at that time was probably about 13 or 1,360 students, which you recall that we did not have this building that we presently house Paducah Cable 2 in. We just had 2 classroom buildings, so it was quite crowded. And the rap session gave me an opportunity to know most of the students by their first name. And yes, the reference you're making was to the moratorium, where the students who were pro-Vietnam War made an expression, and the ones that were anti-Vietnam made an expression, and there was a confrontation between the two groups. But being able to be accepted by the students, I could walk into the middle of this confrontation and did resolve the issue. And you recall how I resolved it was giving the opportunity to both groups to give blood and have it sent to Vietnam.
If they wanted to make a gesture, make a positive one, and both responded, as best I remember.
That's correct.
And so this defused a rather touchy situation. Well, the transition also required some rethinking on the part of others beside the students during this phase. How did it impact upon the board and the faculty?
I think initially, of course, these kind of decisions are made by the governing boards, by the university, and of course by Paducah Junior College. The faculty would be the second phase of transition, and their concerns were really on control and administration and financial, which would be their salaries. And I can recall the first month that they were supposed to be paid by the university, the payroll was late. And being paid locally, and of course just by writing checks locally and being picked up by the faculty in the administration building, this gave me quite a bit of concern. And fortunately I was able to have the supply line of the checks from Lexington to Paducah shortened, and they weren't delayed more than a day.
And this was really, I guess, the first time that the institution ever was late in paying its faculty. And it occurred at this critical moment of the transition.
Yes, quite ironic that one of the reasons that the local community wanted to join the university was for a solid financial base, and here we had a solid financial base, and the money was not here. Yes.
Well, the transition also required the institution to rethink some of its purchasing arrangements with the local community as well. That took a while to sort of work through that. Rather than running downtown and buying something, it required bids and other more accepted accounting procedures for a large institution. Did this pose any major problems during this transition period?
Yes, in fact, there was a period of time, at least for the first month, when we became part of the community college system. I did not take lunch because you know, and many people that travel to Louisville and Lexington realize that we lose an hour going. But that gave us an advantage on the telephone with our telephone network, being able to talk directly to Lexington, that we could use this advantage since at 12 o'clock when we were ready for our lunch break, they were coming back in again. Yes, there are many, many detailed things that no one realized, the Board of Trustees and some of the administrators at Lexington, that we would get into. We are the only college I know of that has gone through a transition such as this, yet retain the local identity with the original founding board being involved and owning or keep possession of the property.
Well, here you had an opportunity, perhaps that other community colleges did not. Somewhere in this, you managed to get a printing operation. How did that materialize?
You're pulling out some very exciting events and periods that I've even forgot about, John. We could not, because of the state statute on printing, go downtown and go to our local vendors, which we had in the past, and print many of the kind of materials we would need for student registration, student cards, this kind of thing. So we purchased an offset printing press and set up a printing operation. At that time, it was housed in the girls' dressing room in the gym. You recall that we did not have girls' athletics at this time.
Well, also the facilities themselves began to expand after we became a fixed part of the community college system, and you began to use the local control board and the university to expand the whole academic program as well. What major changes took place in the physical plant?
John, let's actually start in the beginning, and I think we can go back to the exciting 60s. We needed something to deter activist groups, even from our fine regional institution south of us, from Murray State, of coming onto our campus. So we constructed an entrance, the beautiful entrance that we all see when we come in the campus, and provided for gates that could be closed. And fortunately, we never had to close them. Starting up the hill, in 1968, we had a fine educational facility, but not any recreational opportunities for our students. So one of the first things the local board of trustees was interested in was providing these kinds of things. So the baseball field you see to the right as you come in was constructed in the early 70s. We also constructed 6 tennis courts. Then as we move around our campus, between the library or the LRC, we have an amphitheater which was built in memory of Mr. Finkel.
I believe he'd been a chairman, had he not, of
That's
the
correct.
PJC board?
And a person who loved the institution and did an awful lot for the institution. So that's a memorial in honor of Mr. Finkel. Then just to the corner of this building, we see a new student arts, fine arts student center, which combines music and art in the classrooms with a 500-seat theater in the center, and adjoining it, a beautiful student center.
Well, speaking of the fine arts, when we joined the university system, I believe Paducah, the college at Paducah, Paducah Junior College, then Paducah Community College, was the only one in the UK system that had an extensive program in art or in music. And this must have posed some problems as far as curriculum and other things.
Yes, you know, when we speak about our phases, this I would include in the phase that related to the faculty, and of course, naturally the students. As you discussed in some of your earlier tapes, Paducah Junior College attempted to provide the educational programs to the residents of the area that were not provided by any other institution. Therefore, we did have a fine offering in arts and music. And when we joined the community college system, we did have to tailor some of our offerings to the basic core or general education requirements of the system. So there was a transition in our schedule. There are some courses, for example, business law, which was an upper division course, that was eliminated at this time.
And so Paducah Junior College actually had some special purpose courses that did not really conform to the 2-year, but more upper division work. You mentioned the 2 in the business area, and there were others. I believe one in chemistry that was designed for a special purpose in the community. And so these had to be modified in the transition period. Well, joining the university also opened new avenues for offering education not only to the student population, but to the community at large. Because in the purpose delegated to the community college system by the state legislature, these institutions are to provide 2-year transfer programs, 2-year occupational programs, and adult and continuing educations. We've had a greater growth in the latter 2. What sort of change in attitude did this produce on campus?
I don't know whether it was an attitude change so much as it was expanding our functions and creating more opportunities. Number one, I think the career choices. We did have, as Paducah Junior College, a nursing program. We did have a program in Secretary of Science. Basically, those were the 2 career options. And right at the advent, and you recall we received a Title III grant to provide leasing of a computer. We started the first 2-year program in data processing. Now we have 12 options. So the career expansion and the constructing of the new West Kentucky Vocational School adjacent to this campus has opened up other opportunities for students of both institutions. And maybe later on during this discussion we may want to talk about some of the future opportunities. But career exploration, I think, is one, and then the community service function was getting more impetus and more interest throughout the country. So we do have courses, credit, non-credit, for avocational interest, and also just to take a course in say, economics, maybe taught by you, is an interest of people that not for any career or not for any degree requirement, but just for the fun of it.
And so many professions are requiring periodic updates of skills that the institution also has been offering these. I know the College of Pharmacy of UK has offered continuing education for area pharmacists on our campus. I think there have been other examples too, have there not?
That's a more recent expansion of the broad community service function, but I think probably one that will get more attention during the 80s, and that is the retooling, the re-educating, the upgrading of especially professions, and that pharmacy and law and nursing, I think, of 2 of 3 that we've attempted this past year. But I think we'll see more attention given to a continuing ed function, the upgrading.
Well, so the institution is not only meeting the 3 charges of the legislature, but also it offers to the community other educational opportunities. And the unique relationship between this community college and Murray State University has continued and grown. I believe Murray is a guest on campus and offers graduate level courses that lead to professional updating for teachers, and I believe they also have a full master's program that they offer here. How did this relationship develop?
Well, I think that one, advantage, I think, for myself professionally, and I think also for the community, is that I was here as academic dean from 1966 to 1968, and it allowed me to see what the faculty and what the board had been attempting to do. And I felt that since we were really the only successful community college that was started by the community, that we had a mandate. And I've accepted that mandate back in '68 to provide educational services to the residents of the community. It did not matter who was providing these services, whether it was Murray State or the University of Kentucky or Western, that if the residents benefited, it was the requirement, or I should say the responsibility of this institution to provide that. So yes, we've offered our library for library holdings to Murray State. We provide, I think, over 300 students have enrolled in various graduate level courses this past year. And this is done free of charge to Murray State University. And as I said, it's part of a mandate, I believe, that Paducah, being a locally founded and locally started institution, should provide these kind of services.
And our relationship with the post-secondary vocational school in Paducah also has taken a major turn since the Paducah Junior College Board offered to donate land to the state if they would build the new vocational school adjacent to our campus. What does this promise for future relationships between the two institutions?
That where there are comparable programs, and I think a good example, that one program that we are working with the faculties, both faculties are developing a common curriculum, would be where they have at West Kentucky highway construction technology. At this institution, we have an associate degree in building technology construction and building construction technology. These two can be merged. The common courses of both can be developed in a new curriculum where the students could go ahead and get credit for a course in the highway construction and apply towards associate degree. So what's what we call in education the ladder approach, that they would take the first course at West Kentucky and then they could transfer it to this institution and get an associate degree. So these kinds of common courses that can be, the course at West Kentucky can be used towards a program here.
I believe the two faculties actually got together and identified necessary skills, necessary levels of proficiency, and so that when one completes a part of a course, perhaps at West Kentucky, it also could be moduled into one of our required courses, and
Yes,
vice
John,
versa.
when you and I sit here and discuss education, we can use educational terms that what we've been trying to keep it at a layman's viewpoint, because sometimes in any profession we make up our own language, and when you and I talk we can communicate, but sometimes when we talk to someone outside of education they do not understand what we're speaking about. As you've alluded to, we have defined competencies, and this is a new type of delivery system, I think, in education, but yet it's very, very practical, and I think someone who was not a teacher would recognize the advantage of defining basic competencies and then applying these to similar type programs, yes.
Well, another area in facility acquisition or property acquisition that is attracting a considerable amount of interest at the present time is the Smith property, which is now owned by Paducah Junior College Incorporated. What is the chance for this becoming a major tourist center?
At the time that we're having this discussion, John, I know the state is exploring the feasibility of using the Smith property, restoring it, using it as a welcome station. I think the first question needs to be resolved. Would it be able to access this property and use it as a welcome station? I feel that the Board of Trustees have not formally discussed this offer, but I think I could safely say that they would be in favor of any situation such as this, or any opportunity for Paducah Junior College to assist the state, but also benefit the area residents of having the Smith property restored, or the Smith home, and having a beautiful welcome station.
Well, in our final few minutes, would you just look into your crystal ball and envision what changes we might see down the road in education at Paducah Community College?
I think instructional delivery systems are the things that will probably change the most in the future. As all of us have come through school and attended the elementary and secondary and then college level, except for the advanced graduate programs, it's been most teacher-directed. And I think the future is going to lend itself more to more student-directed. The fine program that we've been able to start in TV, I think that we've used this to a certain degree, and I think we've used it with the acceptance of the faculty and students that it will not replace the classroom teacher. I think the classroom teacher in the 80s will become more of a consultant and request the student to take more direction. He will always be there. He'll always be vital in the learning process. But I don't believe the 80s and 90s will see the same kind of teacher-directed instructional process that we've had. New delivery systems, such we spoke of competency-based curriculums, I think will be much more common. The traditional text and the supplementary materials by the faculty member and adding his expertise or her expertise will still be there, but the delivery systems will be a little bit different. I think computers, of course, will come into the picture of the instructional process. The portable terminal that can be taken home by the students and checked out. Just like in our studio now, we find in our TV program that students are checking out porta-packs, which will be the portable TV tools required to go out and make a production. I think we'll see this in the instructional area also.
Well, I think you've sort of pioneered the use of a community college as a delivery point for cable systems. Was Paducah Community College the first in the nation in cable television?
It was actually the second institution at the time that we were exploring the feasibility to assume the public access function, which is one channel providing 3 minutes of free airtime for a person to express his opinion on a common concern. We've taken this opportunity because we had a 2-year program. It allowed practical hands-on instruction, and then we've used it for instructional use, as you know. And then I think the most exciting function is community access programming. That is programming by the people of the community. Yes, I think it's a resource, and I'm pleased, John, you would allude to that. I feel that what we're doing here at Paducah is providing as you say, a center for educational services.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.